Welcome to Spoken in Justice, where we put the criminal justice system in the dock. In today's video, we are going to look at two cases which have been recently referred by the Criminal Cases Review Commission, or CCRC for short, to the Court of Appeal as we look back 20 years on at the Libor EURIBOR scandal. First, by way of context and background, we examine what Libor EURIBOR are. Then we will take a brief look at how the scandal unfolded, and finally we will focus on the specific cases of Tom Hayes and Carlo Palombo as the latest CCRC referrals to the Court of Appeal. So stay with us until the end. Let's start with a few facts to put these cases into context. The London interbank offered rate, more commonly referred to as Libor, represents the average interest rate that leading banks in London estimated they would be charged when borrowing from other banks. The Euro interbank offered rate, known as EURIBOR, is a similar reference rate for Eurozone banks. Whilst EURIBOR is only available in euros, Libor is available in 10 different currencies. Libor was widely used as a reference rate in financial markets to determine the interest rates on a variety of financial products. It served as a reference point for setting interest rates on loan, mortgages, and other derivatives. Lenders and borrowers often used a specific Libor rate plus a margin to determine the interest rate on loans. Libor was said to have been fundamental to the operation of international financial markets and was the basis for trillions of dollars of financial transactions. The scandal surfaced when Barclays admitted to misconduct and agreed to pay a significant fine in June 2012. In short, regulators found that traders and banks were found to have manipulated the Libor and EURIBOR rates by submitting false or artificially low interest rate quotes to the bodies responsible for calculating these rates. The manipulation typically benefited the bank's trading positions and profitability. But is this the full story? Well, before we got into the details as to the consequences of the Libor EURIBOR scandal and what we know now about it, if you're finding this video useful, please like it and subscribe if you want to help us in our mission to promote the debate into wrongful convictions to a wider community. Back to the Libor EURIBOR scandal, there is no doubt that it had far-reaching consequences. It not only damaged the reputation of major global banks, but also raised the question about the integrity of the financial system as a whole. It had a direct impact on borrowers and investors as the artificially low interest rates affected the payments on loans and investments tied to Libor and EURIBOR, which unsurprisingly caused serious public outrage. Several major banks and financial institutions, including Barclays, UBS, and Royal Bank of Scotland, were fined heavily for their involvement in the rate manipulation. In some cases, individuals, including traders and bank employees, were also prosecuted and sentenced to prison. As far as the prosecutions were concerned, a press release by the SFO dated October 2019 reads, "The SFO's investigation into Libor manipulation has seen charges of conspiracy to defraud brought against 13 individuals. Amongst these was Tom Hayes, a former USB and Citigroup trader who was convicted in August 2015 on 8 counts of conspiracy to defraud in relation to the manipulation of Japanese yen Libor. He was sentenced to 14 years imprisonment, which was later reduced on appeal to 11. He served 5.5 years of that sentence and was released in 2021. The SFO also charged 11 people in connection with the EURIBOR scandal. Amongst those was Carlo Palombo, a former Barclays employee. He was tried in 2018, but the jury was unable to reach a verdict. He was subsequently retried and was found guilty of conspiracy to defraud on the 26th of March 2019. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison on 1st of April 2019. So, you must be thinking happy ending. Crimes were committed, criminals were punished for it. Why are we then talking about it in a channel dedicated to debate shortcomings of the criminal justice system with focus on wrongful convictions? Well, what I have told you so far, it is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. These are the facts 20 years on. Tom Hayes was also charged in the US in relation to Libor manipulation, but had his case dismissed by a New York judge in October 2022. The court said there was no provable case after the convictions of 2 other traders were overturned. German and French authorities have also not prosecuted benchmark rigging case. And what about the UK? In the UK, voices have emerged condemning the story juries in trials connected with the Libor-EURIBOR scandal were told, or, most importantly, story that they were not told. And the Verity, BBC Economist correspondent, in a book called Rigged: The Incredible True Story of the Whistleblowers Jailed After Exposing the Rotten Heart of the Financial System, reveals evidence indicating that in October 2008, central banks intervened on a large scale in the setting of Libor and EURIBOR. Further evidence shows that the UK government, including 10 Downing Street, was also involved in pressuring banks to manipulate Libor as defined by the criminal courts, meaning seeking to obtain movements in the benchmark rate while disregarding the proper basis for setting Libor. Jurors in 9 criminal courts in London and New York between 2015 and 2019 were never shown this evidence. On the 23rd of May 2023, David Davis, Member of Parliament for Halton Price and Howden, talking at the House of Commons, said,
Mr. David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The story I will tell this evening starts with understandable public anger at the failure of both business and state during the 2008 financial crisis and the massive institutional failures to bring real villains to justice. The regulators, The US Department of Justice and the Serious Fraud Office rushed to assuage that anger and deliver convictions, but failed to do the work necessary to properly fulfil their task. Instead, they effectively delegated investigation to the banks, allowing them to offer up middle-ranking scapegoats so they could avoid prosecuting the directors of disaster that actually ran the banks. Whilst the real villains got off scot-free, the scapegoats, including some whistleblowers, faced coercion and injustice. Their lives were destroyed by a totally inadequate regulatory and judicial system. In British courts, critical evidence was concealed. In America, the DOJ used tactics that amounted to judicial blackmail. The result was serial miscarriages of justice. 37 people were prosecuted, 19 convicted and 9 jailed simply for doing their jobs. Their prosecutions prompted not by complaints from victims, but by a political and tabloid firestorm. So how did this happen? Most of the critical data and facts I'll cite come from a 7-year evidence-gathering exercise by Andrew Verity, the BBC's economics correspondent, who will be publishing a book on the subject shortly. And I'm very grateful to Mr. Verity for sight of his work and his data. Come to a conclusion on this. The former Lord Chancellor, Lord Mackay, who's seen this, said that the whole affair presents a serious challenge to the fairness of our system, and the question of law after the US judgment is more than worthy of consideration by the UK Supreme Court. 9 people were jailed for Libor rigging. Each one is a potential miscarriage of justice. People who lost their careers, their reputations, their savings, their marriages and their liberty. Their families' lives were destroyed. Their cases demand a proper re-examination, preferably by the Supreme Court. The only other solution is, as the right honourable gentleman said, a fresh look at the entire affair, a fresh parliamentary inquiry with protection of parliamentary privilege, which would help ensure that the truth comes out and British justice is finally equally applied to all.
On 6th of July 2023, the CCRC in a press release stated, "A financial market trader's convictions have been referred to the Court of Appeal after a wide-ranging and complex review by the CCRC. Mr. Hayes applied to the CCRC in 2017. His representatives provided the CCRC with extensive submissions and several thousands of pages of information which were subject to detailed examination by CCRC staff. Further submissions were provided by his representative subsequently. The CCRC has concluded that there is a real possibility that the Court of Appeal will prefer the legal approach to the definition and operation of the Libor rules taken by the US court and overturn Mr. Hayes' conviction." In a further press release dated 12th of October 2023, the CCRC stated, "A financial market trader's conviction has today been referred to the Court of Appeal by the CCRC. Mr. Palombo applied to the CCRC in July 2023, the same date that it was announced that the CCRC was referring for appeal a similar conviction relating to Libor. This is the human side to wrongful convictions. Hickman and Rose Solicitor's newsfeed revealed that Mr. Palombo missed the birth of his daughter and the first 2 years of her life. Verity's book, at page 320, states, "It's just the injustice of the whole system," says Carlo. "It's just haunting me every day. The senselessness of it and feeling persecuted. Every night I go to bed and I can't sleep thinking of the injustice of the whole thing. I keep replaying the words of the prosecutor and the judge in my mind every day, every night. The whole experience has just completely traumatized and shocked me to the point that, yes, now I'm back in the world, I can see my daughter and my wife, but I'm disengaged, I don't trust society. I don't trust my fellow human beings after seeing what a jury can do to me. I'm just afraid of the world around me, knowing how violent people can be, and especially how violent people can be when they feel they are in the right and feeling that they are punishing someone who needs to be punished. The experience has just destroyed me, destroyed my trust in the world, society, people, all of it. Mr. Hayes, who has Asperger's syndrome and was portrayed as a man without integrity who had succumbed to temptation and greed during the financial crisis, was released from jail on license in 2021 after serving half of an 11-year sentence. According to Reuters, responding to the CCRC announcement to refer his case to the Court of Appeal, he said that he was delighted with the decision, but added, "We will continue to also pursue justice through the House of Commons and through a new Libor inquiry to expose and hold to account those responsible." It remains a tragedy that so many lives were ruined by the false narrative propagated from 2012 when various inquiries were lied to by multiple powerful institutions. Once more, these cases demonstrate the frequent manipulation and presentation of partial truth within the criminal justice system. Juries are frequently left in the dark regarding the typical circumstances in which ordinary individuals find themselves, compelled to yield to the organisational culture of their workplace, or for regulated professionals such as lawyers, doctors or nurses, the inertia and culture of their regulators. This is not just a scary thought, but reality. Professionals are disproportionately burdened with addressing the pressing issue afflicting our contemporary society to compensate for government inaction and ineffective regulatory interventions. Lawyers, for example, are now called upon under the proposed economic and corporate transparency bill to effectively become economic crime law enforcers. But this is, of course, a topic for another video. In conclusion, a criminal justice system established to safeguard the rights and safety of individuals in society, uphold the rule of law, and foster a fair and equitable society through the prevention and addressing of criminal behaviour, must remain uncorrupted by a culture that seeks scapegoats to pacify public outrage, conceals mistakes at all costs, enforces silence through intimidation, and shields the powerful and wealthy. It should instead guarantee fair trials to exonerate the innocent and administer suitable punishment and rehabilitation for the guilty. And remember, this can happen to you. You too could be wrongfully convicted in the ordinary course of your duties at your workplace. Take action and speak up against injustices. Help us bring these issues to a wider community. You can start by liking this video and subscribing to our channel to join our debate on the shortcomings of our criminal justice system. Also, join our networking hub at spokeninjustice.net to have your say as to the future content of this channel. We look forward to usher you as we sit and rise in this unique trial.